everyone. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the transiting nodal axis because it is shifting from Aries and Libra into Pisces and Virgo on the 12th of January. And will stay in that axis, Pisces, Virgo, until July 2026 as an 18-month cycle. So what is this? What is the nodal axis? Well, it's related to the orbit of the moon and the nodal axis. The north end and the south end are not planets. They are points in space where the moon's path, orbital path, actually cuts the ecliptic. It's like an old-fashioned sewing machine, if you ever have seen one of those, that has a kind of bobbing action through the ecliptic, and that's what the moon does on an ongoing basis. And so once a month it cuts north through the ecliptic and also then cuts south, and that represents the north node and the south node. And I believe they are active electromagnetic points in space. And they're immensely important, actually. And when I was studying astrology for many years, in Western astrology, they were barely referred to, they were barely mentioned. But in the last sort of 10 years or so, I've become extremely interested in them and even wrote a book about them called How to Co-Create Using the Secret Language of the Universe, which is a workbook to work with your own birth chart. You work with the book, with your birth chart, and people have really loved that. So that's the nodal axis. So you have a natal nodal axis, which is incredibly important as the book describes. But what I'm talking about here is the transiting nodal axis. So the north node in your birth chart represents I think it represents your compass needle in this lifetime, where you are meant to head for as new ground, new virgin territory, if you like, in order to feel fully satisfied at the soul level with this particular path in your life. When we're looking at it at a collective basis, there's a shift every 18 months to the optimum path of growth for the collective, but it still operates at that soul level. So the north node is where we are headed collectively, and the south node is what we've already achieved. And we don't dismiss that, we don't throw it away, we incorporate it. We're moving away from that because it's now familiar, but we still incorporate it into the path with the north node. Now, Pisces and Virgo as signs will fall across an opposing pair of houses. So look in your birth chart and see where Pisces falls and where Virgo falls. And probably in each case, Pisces straddles two houses for you, Virgo straddles two houses. Nevertheless, just see where those signs are, because that's where the nodes are going to be moving over the next 18 months. And that's important because it will tell you where a lot of the activity in the next 18 months is going to be for you. Say they are falling, always opposing pairs of houses, so say they're falling in your 4th and your 10th house. Well, that means there's going to be a lot of focus on your home, but also your career, and perhaps how you rebalance those. And they become even more important because the eclipses, which are very often times of major, even permanent life change for us, can only happen when the new moons and the full moons are close to the nodal axis. So the eclipses usually happen in those same houses to the opposing pair of houses. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. You can go to the link below and get a 2-part video series that will take you from zero to help to explain, will explain in very simple terms where these points fall in your chart. And therefore you can follow all of these updates I do and make it relevant to your own life. So really helpful to do that. Otherwise, this is just kind of abstract. So So yes, this is very important. Now, so this is for the next 18 months, the quality of where we need to focus as a collective, principally in Pisces, but incorporating Virgo. And also, what's important to note is that the ruler of Pisces, Neptune, is already conjunct the North Node, even though at the moment, as I'm filming on the 7th of January, it's still in Aries. Nevertheless, for the first 3 months of this year, up until the end of March, Neptune will be conjunct that North Node, emphasizing even more the Pisces side of its expression. That conjunction will be exact between Neptune and the North Node on the 7th of February. We'll feel it particularly strongly then. So, what is this axis all about? Well, one of the first big themes is that it's the health axis. It's to do with your blood, your immune system, it's to do with viruses, that kind of thing. And it's therefore very important that you get yourself in peak shape as we go through these next 18 months. Virgo has a lot to do with detoxification and purifying. So you might find that you go through a detox, or you try some fasting, you change your diet, you do some juicing, that kind of thing. And to really get in good shape, you get good sleep, you have good food, etc. Do all that you can to be robust health-wise as we move through the next 18 months. It's very interesting also that, of course, these next 18 months are extraordinary in terms of all of the outer planets changing signs, which I've talked about in many videos, and so have all of the other astrologers. It's an extraordinary time. And so this Pisces Virgo nodal axis, which is happening over the next 18 months, is happening during that extremely active period of transformation for humanity. So a lot of the themes around this nodal axis are feeding into that transformation that are indicated by the shifts of the outer planets into different signs. So it's interesting, and you may think, well, the North Node is moving from Aries into Pisces, and its ruler, Neptune, is moving from Pisces into Aries, so don't they kind of cancel each other out? No, they don't, because I think the nodal axis, as I say, operates at a soul level, a deeper level, and a lot of the things that we are dreaming, visualizing, Neptune in Aries, which is about action, could start to really put those into action, bring about the manifestation of what we're dreaming and visualizing for our futures. So I think another big theme for this nodal axis is really helping us to see the earth as sacred, as Gaia, as a living consciousness, and helping us to rediscover and remember all of that ancient wisdom. Could be those shamanic practices, it could be plant medicine, herb medicine, all of those things. We really start to see or remember that the earth has so much wisdom to help us with our health. So I think that whole side of natural medicine, I don't know why they called alternative, because it was the original medicine, but natural medicine will become a much bigger thing. It will become much more online, as it were. Also, remember another thing just to say about the Neptune conjunction is that Neptune, although it's exactly conjunct the North Node on the 7th of February, Neptune will be at 29 degrees of Pisces, the anoretic degree, that extreme degree of Pisces, all through March, and still conjunct the North Node. And that may well bring up some very big issues around flooding and water and that kind of thing. That's I'm going to be talking more about that. I think also we are moving away from the Virgo lower mind, micro managing, lists, perfectionism, that has very much been part of our lives to date, and surrendering to the divine. Just surrendering to the divine. And Tucker talked about this beautifully in her recent video, that surrendering is not in this sense about giving up or despairing or there's no point. This is about a much higher level, surrendering to the divine flow. And I think at the highest level, this Pisces North Node promises us transcendence, which will be absolutely beautiful for those who are on the spiritual path. And it will remind us that our reality is much more malleable, because Pisces is very malleable. It has no boundaries. It's not fixed. It's mutable water. And so this can be quite magical and multidimensional, quite elemental, actually. I think of kind of fairies and elves, and it can connect us to all of that magical side of Gaia too, but remind us equally that our reality is incredibly malleable. And we're going to start to become real masters of this, I think, as we move through certainly this year, and the next 2 to 3 years, I think, are beyond description in terms of the transformation for humanity. I think we're going to have a lot more interest in spirituality, sacred music, healing, oneness, meditation, breath work, all of those practices. It's much more creative as well, be it art or music or poetry, much more creative. And I think it's creative also thinking that we've got Pluto in Aquarius at the same time. It's highly creative in terms of innovation. And I've mentioned recently that I post on Facebook almost on a daily basis the incredible creative innovations that very young people, often school children, are developing, which are just mind-blowing, actually, quite genius. Taking waste from one area and transforming it into something else that can produce free energy or whatever. Well worth checking out. And I may try to start to mention these because I can't share them. They're not videos I could share. I can only share them within Facebook. So if you're on there, just follow me, Pam Gregory or Pam Gregory Astrology. I've got 2 legitimate pages. So I think we will see definitely this distinct shift to the spiritual. We may also see, and I've mentioned this before, that because we have this trine between Uranus and Pluto, but Neptune at the midpoint, we may see that those altered states, because Pisces very much about altered states, whether it's through drink or drugs or meditation, it's spirit or it's spirit, being achieved through things like virtual reality, technology. And that is one way to go, but I just ask you to use very great discernment as we move through these times. There will be incredible technological surges as we go through this, so many innovations. Really take care with even not just your mini decisions, but your micro decisions about things that you are participating in that may lead you on to a bigger timeline, and you think, oh my goodness, this isn't the timeline I intended. It was interesting. I was listening to my very good friend Heather Ensworth the other day, doing a wonderful update, and she used a brilliant analogy. She said, as we start to use more AI in our lives, the caterpillar could perhaps incorporate AI and become a smarter or a faster caterpillar, but it will never turn into a butterfly. And I thought that was quite brilliant, because ultimately this whole period of time is about us developing our inner spiritual technology, our own innate consciousness, our own divine consciousness. And I think that's really important as a navigational tool as we go through this. So I think dissolving employment is another theme with this, dissolving Pisces. Virgo is to do with employment, and of course with more robotics being used in employment. That is very clear to see how that can happen. And of course, there are very big socioeconomic implications of all of that. If we have higher unemployment, what does that do for the people who aren't working? And can they be given salary in another way? And what are the implications of that and the obligations linked to that? This is a big, big thing, as I'm sure you can imagine, way bigger than this video. But other themes that come up strongly with this: water in so many ways. Now, it can be incredible discoveries about water. As you know, Vade Austin and also Randy Hatton, who I interviewed a year or so back, are doing some beautiful work, incredible work with water as divine intelligence, as a primary evolutionary force. That will continue. Their research investigations into water that is teaching us so much will continue. I know it will. They're both very dedicated to their missions. But it can be water in other ways: the seas, the oceans, our drinking water. It can be pollution, it can be toxicity, it can be those kinds of things that we have to stay alert to. The media is linked to Pisces, so our pharmaceutical companies, pharmaceutical drugs, addictions of all kinds. And it can be linked to, Pisces particularly linked to, a state of confusion or overwhelm. Just, I'm completely at sea. Pisces, I'm completely at sea. I've got all this information, Virgo, all of this detail. I can't kind of organize it and sift it to make any sense of it. I am just completely overwhelmed. And we may well have that sense, for some people, even going into psychosis, because it's just so big. And a lot of the truths coming out in 2025 are going to be huge as well. And deception is going to be part of this, as well as truths come to light. Pisces is linked to the shedding of the veil, the losing of the illusion, and great disillusionment, and a sense of deception. So we need to watch for that too. Fishing is linked to Pisces. So are prisons and hospitals and charities. Fishing and shipping, anything to do with the seas. And I think shipping may be quite challenged as an industry this year. That's my sense. Pisces is also linked to homeless people, refugees, the destitute, the people on the periphery of society, people who are climate refugees, who, because of extreme Earth events, be it weather or be it seismic activity, have had to migrate to become kind of climate refugees, extreme Earth event refugees. So I think we're going to see some of that during these next 18 months as well. I would really recommend that Virgo is to do with our simple daily practices. I would really recommend, because another big theme around this is what's true and what's not. Because Pisces can be foggy. It can be, I'm not quite sure. Is it real? Is it not? Is it true? Is it not? So that foggy, cloudy side of Pisces can be exacerbated because of the rapidly increasing AI. It's going to be harder and harder for us to tell what's real and what's not. And that's why you need to drop into your discernment, principally via your heart rather than your mind. We're shifting from the mind to the heart. So very simple daily practices. Detox, I've mentioned, perhaps juicing, perhaps fasting, really getting clear in your energy body. Grounding. As the weather allows, grounding, bare feet on the grass, bare feet on the earth. You can sleep on a grounding mat. I use a grounding mouse mat, a sort of rubber grounding mouse mat. So when I'm working on the computer for hours and hours, I'm actually touching that grounding mouse mat the whole time, which supposedly takes all the negative, the damaging ions out of your system. And I seem to survive fairly well on that. So you can go to groundology.com, groundology.co.uk. There are various sites that sell these. So, and I'm not affiliated with any of them, but I'd really recommend grounding. Yoga, Tai Chi, breath work is another great practice to ground you, to get into the body, to stop the kind of buzz in the head that is going to come about with the other planetary aspects like Pluto in Aquarius, and from July onwards, Uranus in Gemini are going to have a lot of mental buzzing and overload. So grounding is super important. Now, what may be helpful for you as well, alongside the book, I developed 3 teaching videos, and I'll put the links for these below. One is called a video companion to the book. And what that covers is it's 75 minutes of really concentrated teaching on any natal conjunctions you have to your natal nodal axis. Also looking at the transiting nodes and transiting planets and what the meaning is when they come to conjunct your natal nodal axis. And if you didn't understand any of that, the video explains that, and beginners can use that. That's very, very simple. The second one is called The Alchemy of Relationship, and that's not for beginners. It's crammed with information, I have to say, but only part of it is about the nodes. So I look at different aspects of synastry, principally looking at romantic relationships in that one. But I found that the nodes are incredibly powerful in relationship. I know in my own marriage, that was the driving force of you meet someone and in a moment you think, I've known you for 1,000 years. You are so familiar, and the dance goes on because it's very much a past life connection. And often I've looked at the charts. I don't do client work anymore, sadly, no time. But if I've looked at the charts of clients, of married couples or romantically involved couples, often where's the link? Where's the glue? If the suns and the moons and the Mercuries and the Venuses, etc., don't match up, where's the glue? And quite often the only glue has been the nodal axis, because it's a past life connection. When your natal nodal axis is conjunct theirs, either conjunct or flipped. Your natal north node is conjunct his natal south node, but it's still very much the signature of a past life connection. So I would definitely suggest that if you're not a beginner, you take a look at The Alchemy of Relationship. And the third one I did 2-3 years ago. It's an advanced nodes webinar. Again, not for beginners. It's about 2 hours, 10 minutes. Again, concentrated teaching, not for beginners. I want to say that because I don't want beginners to kind of purchase it and then they're just boggled by the information. So you've got to have a basic grounding in understanding the basics of the chart, your way around the chart, and what the nodes are. But for sure, the transiting planets aspects to your nodal axis are very important, particularly if, say, you have transiting Pluto up in the sky in the kind of very early couple of degrees of Aquarius. If that is coming to conjunct your nodal axis, either end, north or south end, that lasts for about 2 years on the same degree. And that can often bring profound mystical experiences and past life recall, past life connections with people who pop into your life, and you think, wow, it may or may not be romantic, that doesn't matter, but it's a sense of we've been around this hamster wheel before. Equally with Neptune, that's often the case, that transiting Neptune right at the end of Pisces and going into Aries, if that comes to conjunct your natal nodal axis, that is equally very, very mystical, very beautiful for your spiritual development. If the transiting nodal axis in Pisces and Virgo for the next 18 months comes onto your sun, remember the nodes always move retrograde, they move backwards. If that is kind of backing onto your sun, particularly if it's the north node, this can be, and it will only last for a month, that can be a time when you really shine. You become prominent in some way, raises your profile. So very interesting to watch that. And also when I was writing the book, I suggested to people that they start to play with this with their loved ones. And their loved ones can be their partners, their children, their parents, even their friends. That if you know enough astrology to look at your natal nodal axis and their natal nodal axis and all their planets, of their planets, just use the conjunctions because otherwise you just get boggled. Of their planets conjunct, and I'd use an orb. You can use quite a wide orb actually for the nodal axis. I've discovered you can use 8 degrees, maybe even 9 degrees. And it still seems to operate. So are their planets natally conjunct your natal nodal axis? Or are your natal planets conjunct either end their nodal axis? For instance, let's say if you look at your son, if you have a son, a male child, S-O-N, who has his moon conjunct your south node, the south node is the past life end, was he your mother in a past life? If your daughter, if you have one, if her natal Saturn is conjunct your south node, was she your father in a past life? Because we can change gender. So this can take you on a deep dive. And I'm not saying the astrology is definitive in any way. I'm just suggesting this for contemplation and meditation, because the astrology only goes so far. And then you have to sort of do a deep dive and think, gosh, well, my son is actually very nurturing and motherly, and my daughters can be quite moral and upright and quite strict, and just see where that takes you. If it's the sun, that person could have made you shine in a past life. If it's the moon, it's the mother. If it's Mercury, were you siblings or friends in a past life? If it's Venus, were you lovers? That comes up really strongly in relationship. I'm thinking of a couple at the moment that, they're absolutely so fast to fall in love and get married. And one of the very few bits of glue was one person's Venus conjunct the other person's natal south node. Amazingly powerful. Mars, were you warriors or pioneers together? Jupiter, were you teachers or philosophers or wanderers, travelers together? Saturn, again, the father figure coming in. Neptune, did you have a very spiritual life together? Was there deception? Did one person deceive the other? Uranus is a great feeling of discovery, excitement, innovation. Were you innovators together in some way? Scientists, engineers of some kind? And Pluto is really deep, really profound in terms of that person who has the Pluto was a transformer in some way in a past life for you. And again, you've got to do the deep dive to find out how that works. Now, what I just said there may be completely incomprehensible to some of you, but if you start investigating this, it is so rich. I feel even after the last decade or so, I'm still just scratching the surface with the nodal axis. And of course, in Indian astrology, this is the most dominant thing, the most important thing. In tropical Western astrology, it hasn't been, but increasingly is being recognized as very, very important at the soul level. We have to fulfill our North Node compass point to really, truly feel satisfied in our lives. Because if we keep falling back to the familiar South Node, we're not breaking new ground for ourselves. So you have to look at where your natal North Node is in terms of house and in terms of sign. And that's how to co-create using the secret language of the universe. is all about if you wish to investigate it. So a lot in here today, but it's really, this video is about the transiting nodal axis into Pisces and Virgo, and I truly deeply feel that this is going to help us reconnect to one consciousness, to Gaia, to wisdom, to so much that we have not been able to access in many lifetimes, and ultimately this state of transcendence. I think March will be immensely powerful in terms of this, because that's the kind of late February, March is the Pisces month where we have a whole lineup of planets in Pisces, and we have Neptune still conjunct the North Node, and we have Neptune at the anaretic degree. So I really want to highlight that, because it's also, many scholars are saying that is the end of Kali Yuga, the age of darkness. So some big quantum leaps to come this year. Thank you so much for listening. Really hope it's helped you. God bless. I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.